The Honda service manual calls for 0.10 millimeters plus or minus 0.03 millimeters, or 4 thousandths plus or minus 1/1000th of an inch on the intake valve. And on the exhaust valve, we have 0.19 millimeters plus or minus 0.03 millimeters, or 7 thousandths plus or minus 1/1000th. The reason that the exhaust valve calls for greater clearance is because the exhaust valve is subject to more heat than the intake valve, and it expands and contracts a great deal more. Okay, over to the drawing board. The valve shim that we have installed in the Metropolitan engine right now is 1.60 millimeters. The clearance that we got between the shim and the rocker arm, we had 7 thousandths, which is 0.1776 millimeters. However, because our valve shim kit goes up in denominations of 0.05 millimeters, we rounded this up to 0.20 millimeters. And then what we'll do is we're going to add those together, and that's going to give us the space, the total space between the top of the valve and the bottom of the rocker arm, which is 1.80 millimeters. Now, if we put a 1.80 millimeter shim in here, we would have 0 valve lash. So to actually get the proper valve lash that Honda specifies of 0.10 millimeters, we need to figure out how much to install. So we're going to subtract 0.10 millimeters from that, and so that would leave us with that amount of space there, and we'll get 1.70 millimeters. So that's the size shim we're going to install, is the 1.70 millimeter shim, and then we're going to double check with the feeler gauges and make sure that this size is kosher. If you're having a hard time staying awake during this video, I highly recommend Java Monster energy drinks to stay awake. If you're not feeling lubricated enough watching this video, I also recommend AMSOIL 4-stroke scooter oil. Okay, now we're going to remove our old shim. Oh, my light just went out. That's not cool. Remove the old shim. And stick the new one to a magnet there. There's the phone, Somebody Loves Me. And pop that in. Whoops. And answer the phone, and then we'll come back and check. We now return to Josh adjusting valves. Got a 4 thousandth feeler gauge, and we're going to see if my hand can get in your way so that you can't see what's going on. It pops right in there. It's got a little bit of grab to it. That looks good to me. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to stick with that for our intake valve, and we're going to move on to the exhaust now, which is the same procedure. Alright, let's check the clearance on our exhaust valve. I've got a 6 thousandths feeler gauge, and that translates to 0.15 millimeters. And I'm going to feel between the shim and the rocker arm. That actually feels fairly snug. I would go with that, to be honest with you. We could change it out and get the numbers spot on, but this will work. Alright. Let's put this thing back together and see if we can get it started. I like to connect the hoses first before I bolt the valve cover back on, especially because this particular hose here can be a bit of a pain in the butt. Now, instead of removing them in the first place, you can leave them connected and kind of shove the head off to the side, but I chose not to do it that way. I believe the manual says to torque these down to something like 6.5 foot-pounds. If you're a sticker about that kind of stuff, then you can do it. I really am. I really like to torque down cylinder head bolts and such. But for the valve cover, to me, snug is good enough. Been doing this for years, never had a problem. So you just kind of got to get a feel for it, though. If you're unsure, torque it. Spark plug going back in. A key. The battery is deader than dead, so we're going to use this thing. I think it's broke. Sounds good. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a valve adjustment, on a Honda Ruckus or a Honda Metropolitan scooter. I appreciate you watching the video.